The day I gave birth, my husband's father walked into the hospital room and declared, "I'll be raising this baby, not you." My husband nodded and said, "Dad knows best." I pretended to agree until I pulled out a paper and said, "Then you won't mind seeing what the judge thinks." Their smiles vanished as the truth hit them. The day I gave birth was supposed to be the happiest of my life. After hours of grueling labor, I finally held my baby girl, Lily, in my arms. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I felt an overwhelming surge of love and protectiveness. But that moment of bliss was shattered when my father-in-law, Richard, barged into the hospital room. Richard was a towering man in his early 60s, with a stern face that rarely showed emotion. He had always been overbearing, but I never expected what came next. He stood at the foot of my bed, glanced at Lily, and then looked me straight in the eye. "I'll be raising this baby, not you," he declared, his voice cold and authoritative. I was stunned. Before I could respond, my husband, Mark, who had been standing quietly by the window, nodded in agreement. "Dad knows best," Mark said softly. My heart sank. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But instead of reacting with the fury that was bubbling inside me, I took a deep breath and forced a smile. "Of course," I said, my voice steady. "If that's what you both think is best." Their smug expressions told me they believed I was conceding. But they had underestimated me. I reached into the bedside drawer and pulled out a folded document. I handed it to Richard, who took it with a puzzled look. "Then you won't mind seeing what the judge thinks," I said calmly. As Richard unfolded the paper and began to read, his face turned pale. Mark peered over his shoulder, and I saw the color drain from his face as well. "What is this?" Richard stammered. "It's a restraining order," I replied. "Effective immediately. Neither of you are to come near me or Lily without my explicit permission." Their eyes widened in shock. I had anticipated their move. During my pregnancy, I had noticed Richard's increasing interest in our unborn child. He often made comments about how he would teach the baby this and that, and how he had plans for her future. It made me uneasy. I confided in my friend, Sarah, who worked as a paralegal. She advised me to document everything and helped me consult with a lawyer. Together, we built a case to protect my rights as Lily's mother. "You can't do this," Mark said, his voice shaking. "I can and I have," I said firmly. "The court takes the well-being of a child very seriously. Given the evidence of your father's controlling behavior and your complicity, they granted the order." Richard's hands trembled as he gripped the paper. "This is outrageous," he barked. "What's outrageous," I shot back, "is thinking you can take a newborn from her mother. I carried her for 9 months. I went through labor. And you think you can just take her away? Over my dead body." Mark stepped forward, trying to placate me. "We just thought, you didn't think," I interrupted. "Neither of you did. But I did. And I won't let you control me or my daughter." The nurse, hearing the commotion, entered the room. I turned to her. "Please escort these men out," I requested. "They are not welcome here." The nurse nodded and called for security. Richard and Mark were too stunned to resist as they were led out of the room. Once they were gone, I held Lily close to my chest, tears streaming down my face. I had stood up to them, but the emotional toll was heavy. I knew the battle wasn't over, but I was prepared to fight for my daughter's safety and well-being. Over the next few weeks, I focused on recovering and bonding with Lily. I changed the locks on our home and installed a security system. I also filed for divorce from Mark. His betrayal was too deep to mend. Richard tried to contest the restraining order, but the evidence was stacked against him. Witnesses, including Sarah and some of my neighbors, testified about his controlling nature and past incidents that showcased his temperament. Mark reached out multiple times, apologizing and begging for another chance. But I couldn't trust him. He had chosen his father over his wife and child. I allowed supervised visits for him to see Lily, but our relationship was beyond repair. Through therapy and the support of friends like Sarah, I began to heal. I joined a support group for single mothers and found solace in shared experiences. I also pursued further legal action to ensure Lily's and my safety. One evening, as I was rocking Lily to sleep, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mark. "I've started therapy," it read. "I realize now how much I hurt you. I want to be a better father for Lily." I stared at the message, conflicted. Part of me wanted to believe he had changed, but the wounds were still fresh. I decided to take things one step at a time, always prioritizing Lily's well-being. As the months went by, I built a new life for us. I found a job that allowed me to work from home, ensuring I could always be there for Lily. We created our own little world, filled with love and laughter. Richard eventually gave up his attempts to control us. The restraining order remained in place, and he knew better than to cross that line again. My experience taught me the importance of standing up for oneself and the lengths a mother will go to protect her child. I learned that family isn't always defined by blood, but by those who stand by you in your darkest hours. And as I watched Lily grow, I knew I had made the right choices. She was safe, loved, and free from the toxic influence that once threatened to overshadow our lives. A few months passed. I was starting to feel like I could finally breathe again. Lily was growing fast. Her eyes followed me everywhere, and her little giggles filled our small apartment with life. I worked from home, had a routine, and even started going to a mom and baby yoga class on Thursdays. Things weren't perfect, but they were peaceful. Until the letters started coming. At first, I thought it was junk mail. A plain white envelope with no return address. But when I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a typed letter. No signature. No name. Just one line. "A child belongs with her legacy." I stared at it for a long time. My stomach turned. I didn't tell anyone, not even Sarah. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe I was overreacting. But I kept the letter and locked my windows that night. 2 days later, another one came. Same envelope. Same type. This time it said, "You're just the vessel. We're the roots." I didn't sleep that night. I called my lawyer the next morning. He took it seriously, which only made it worse. He told me to keep every letter and to report it to the police. I filed a report, but there wasn't much they could do without a suspect. I had a gut feeling who it was. Richard. This was a message. Someone had been in my home. A week later, I saw Mark in the parking lot of my building. I hadn't told him where I moved. He looked thinner, older somehow. I picked up Lily and held her tight. "Hey," he said. "I've been trying to reach you." I didn't answer. I just stared. He sighed. "I just want to talk." I swear I didn't know what Dad was doing. I thought we were just making plans, you know. I laughed. A dry, bitter sound. "You agreed with him, Mark. In that hospital room, you agreed." "I was scared," he said. "I thought Dad could help." "I was wrong. I'm in therapy now. I've changed." I looked at Lily. Her tiny face pressed into my chest. Then back at him. "I don't trust you. And I don't forgive you." He nodded slowly. "I get it. But I need to warn you. My dad, he's not letting this go." There it was. The real reason he came. He's talking about lineage and bloodline, like it's some royal family crap, Mark continued. He's been going to these meetings. I don't even know what they are. But it's weird. It's not just about Lily. It's bigger. That word, meetings, made my skin crawl. I told Sarah everything. She pulled some records. Richard had made donations to a group called the Heritage Alliance. A private group. Very little online about them. But what we did find. They were extreme. They believed in pure family lines and patriarchal restoration. I wanted to scream. This wasn't just about a grandfather wanting to babysit. This was some twisted idea of legacy and control. Then the court papers came. Richard had filed for grandparents' rights. He was petitioning the court to gain legal visitation, or worse, shared custody. It was official. This was war. I was still reeling from the court papers when something else happened, something I never saw coming. I got a letter in the mail, but it wasn't like the others. This one had a return address. A law office. Inside was a copy of a life insurance policy. Mark's name was on it. The beneficiary? Richard. It said if anything happened to Mark, everything, including custody of Lily, would be left to his father. My hands shook. I couldn't understand why Mark would sign something like that. I took it straight to my lawyer. He read it 3 times before looking up at me. This is serious. It's not illegal, but combined with the harassment, it paints a disturbing picture. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Was Mark in on this again? Or was he just a pawn? Then, 2 days before our court date, I got another visitor. Her name was Tessa. She was maybe mid-30s, thin, with tired eyes and messy brown hair. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. She found me at Lily's dinner. Tessa told me she was Mark's half-sister. I blinked at her. What? Different mother, she explained. I'm the daughter he doesn't talk about. Richard never claimed me publicly. My mom left when I was a baby because he tried to do to her what he's trying to do to you. She pulled out a folded photo, her and a little boy. That's me. And my son. He tried to take him from me too. Said I was unfit. He even faked medical reports. She said Richard believed he had the right to raise the children born from his bloodline, regardless of what the mother wanted. She'd fought him for years. And lost. Her son was living with Richard. I was speechless. She started crying. Don't let him win. If he gets his foot in the door, you'll never see Lily again. He doesn't just want access. He wants ownership. Tessa agreed to testify in court. She had emails, recordings, even her own failed custody transcripts. Her case had been thrown out years ago, but the evidence still existed. The morning of the court hearing, Mark showed up alone. Richard wasn't with him. He looked nervous. I sat across from him, holding Lily close. She was calm, not knowing that everything around her was about to decide her future. Just before we were called in, Mark leaned over and whispered, I didn't sign that policy. I swear. I didn't answer him. Not then. But what happened inside the courtroom turned everything on its head. Richard didn't show up. Instead, his lawyer stood and withdrew the petition. Just like that. No explanation. No statement. Case dismissed. I was shocked. My lawyer was stunned. We stepped out of the courtroom, confused but relieved. That's when I saw Mark sitting on a bench, staring at the floor. I walked up to him. What did you do? He looked at me, exhausted. I recorded him. The night he threatened to take Lily and make sure you never saw her again. Said he'd make it look like an accident. My blood froze. I gave it to his lawyer, Mark continued. Told him if they didn't drop it, I'd go public. And press charges. I didn't know what to say. Mark had betrayed me once. But now, maybe he was finally seeing the monster his father really was. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. People like Richard didn't give up. They regrouped. They planned. I was safe for now. But I kept the cameras on. And I slept with my phone next to me. After the court dropped the case, a weight lifted off me, but only for a moment. I didn't trust the silence. Not with Richard. Mark tried to see Lily more after that. He brought toys. He showed up on time. He was careful with his words. But I kept my distance. I allowed supervised visits only. I watched every move. Tessa and I kept in touch. She told me Richard went completely off the radar. No phone calls, no social media. She said it wasn't like him. He always liked to feel in control. But now? Nothing. Until one morning, I woke up to a knock on my door. It was a detective. Richard was found in his home, alone. Dead. Gunshot wound. Self-inflicted. But that wasn't the shocking part. The police found files, dozens of files, in a locked cabinet. Photos of me. Of Lily. Copies of court documents. Notes. Plans. Surveillance screenshots of us at the park, the daycare, even inside our apartment from a hidden camera. They also found a written manifesto, his plan to gain full custody, take Lily out of the country, and raise her under a false identity. My stomach turned. They said Mark's recording probably pushed him over the edge. That and the failing lawsuit. He lost control. And that's when he broke. I thought I'd feel safe. Relieved. But instead, I felt angry. Angry that it went this far. Angry that no one had stopped him years ago. And angry at myself for ever letting him near my daughter in the first place. After the funeral, which I didn't attend, Mark asked to talk. I agreed. One last time. He sat across from me in the park, watching Lily chase birds. I didn't know he was capable of that, he said. I should have listened to you. You didn't just ignore me, I said. You agreed with him. You backed him in that hospital room. I was scared, he whispered. I thought he had power. Money. I didn't want to lose everything. You lost your family, I said. That was the real cost. He looked down, eyes full of regret. I stood up. You can still see Lily. But it'll always be supervised. And if you try anything, I won't hesitate to cut you off. I understand, he said. Then he looked at me and added, he hated strong women. You scared him more than anyone else. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I walked away with Lily in my arms, her head on my shoulder. We passed a bench where an old man sat reading a newspaper. I glanced at him. Just a man. But for a second, my heart jumped. That was Richard's legacy. Fear. Control. Shadows that lived long after he didn't. But I made a promise that day. Right there in the middle of that ordinary park, no man would ever own my story again. Not Richard. Not Mark. Not anyone. And if they tried, they'd better hope they never saw what I'd do next.